Okay, string one. Could you see my screen?
Perfect.
Okay. Okay, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. Before I start to my talk today, I will try to look back again the questions of the last week. Actually, last week we talked about the principles of seafood supply chain, and maybe you were interested, but we don't have much time to discuss. And I received on 6 questions from you, and today I will try to answer one by one. Actually, one of them will be answered for this topic. It's mean that today. If after today, I hope that you will understand clearly about the how we share the information along the supply chain, something like this. But first, I should give you the general information first and answer one by one question. The first question is you see in the screen. The supply chain management is also a system, as you said, and we could not start that without collaboration. Okay, and at first, a beginner, what should we do to start having this system in our fishery system? And thank you very much for a very good question. Actually, yes, I agree with you. We could not start the supply chain management without collaboration and integration. But let's think that supply chain is the chain, which includes 3 main components, include product flows, information flows, and finance flows. And during the management of supply chain procedure, you have to consider all process and all activities to manage 3 flows. And the main aim of those activities are to gain the expectation of each agent in the supply chain, such as they want to improve their product quality, or they want to minimize costs, they want to maximize profit, they want to respond their customer, they want to adapt the requirements from the globalization, something like this. So we do that because we cannot work by ourselves, by individual. We have to collaborate first, but supply chain is the chain, and management process of supply chains we have to focus on 3 flows of supply chain. And from our fishery system, because we use our fishery system, so please think about our countries. Our countries like Indonesia or my countries is Vietnam. Our fisheries is celebrating in very small scale. We cannot compare to the developed countries like Japan, like Canada, like Australia. We have to compare together and remind that we are celebrating in very small scale. And we are the main supplier for seafood products in the world. And the main purpose of us, our main purpose is to export. That's why we have to focus and we have to consider the requirements of the global customer. And because its countries, its markets will have the different regulation, will have different laws. So we have to consider about the regulation of each market we want to export. So and at the beginning, at our local side first, please, because from the global side, actually they have all regulation. They have fully regulation, but from our side, we don't have, because it's very difficult to manage very small scale fishermen or very small scale farmers. So before we start to think about a complete supply chain, we should think about how to let them, how to share to them about the benefit. What is benefit they will get when they integrate? How much cost they have to invest to get this through integration, to join to the supply chain game. Everyone will be happy if they know exactly how much they can get, and how they, and everyone will happy if they ensure that they are protected by policy makers. Because we cannot, actually from our fisheries, because we cannot show very clearly about the benefit to everyone, to each agent, especially small scale fishermen or farmers. So they are not willing to invest, to integrate or cooperate. But when they can know everything, and the information is shared together, they will. Actually, the next topic I will share to you about how we calculate the benefit, and how we calculate the cost, and how the small scale fishermen or how small scale farmers are willing to accept or willing to implement traceability, or implement or integrate to the supply chain with the others. So first, let's think about the benefits of each agent in the supply chain. And the second, we have to think about the regulation. We have to think about they can get benefit, but as I mentioned, how much they have to spend, and what is the liability or responsibility in this game. When you join to this game, how much you can invest, what will you have to trade off to get those benefits. When everything is clearly and when everything is specified, I think we should start at this point first from our fishery system. Okay, let me try to answer one by one first, and if you are happy with my answer, it's okay. But if you want to discuss more, let's do that after my answer. Okay. And the second question is your experience, is my experience, is there any difference between fisheries product and non-fisheries products? Yes, of course. Yes, of course. As I mentioned in the lectures, each industry actually its agents in the supply chain, they have their own supply chain based on the product flows, based on their information flows, and based on their financial flows. So of course each industry will have the different characteristic, and that's why the between fisheries products and non-fishery products is very different, because we during the supply chain management. The first question is you said about sharing information. What kind of information could be shared within the chain system? Thank you. Well, maybe this question will be answered in this lecture, today's lecture about traceability. But first, in general, I can respond that the information shared within the chain will be depends on your purpose. When you want to manage, what kind of information, what kind of purpose you will consider during your management. It means that it depends on your expectation. Like producers or like fishermen, do you think what they are considered? They are considered about the price, right? How much they can get after they sell their product. So if they want, what kind of information they want to share, I think they don't want to share about the price. I'm sure. In my experience, when I asked the fisherman, it excludes it said that government they publish the price. Otherwise, the farmers or the fishermen they don't want to tell about the price with you because they will negotiate with their sellers. Okay, so it depends on the purpose of each agent, or it depends on the characteristics of each industry. Like in fisheries, government they want to governance, they want to monitoring about the legal, about the reporting, IUU fishing. They want to manage, they want to avoid IUU fishing. That's why they need to consider about the regulation, how to avoid IUU fishing. And it's I mentioned that you have to, it depends on the purpose, but the purpose, your purpose have to towards to respond your customer, and especially the first tier customer, and not only first tier but also the final consumers, what kind of information they need, and if they want to sell your product to them, you have to respond them. Okay. The fourth question is there any difference between countries in terms of importing requirement? What countries that most difficult countries to be certified? Yes, it's countries, as I mentioned, its countries will be different requirement in terms of importing requirement. Like in Japan actually Japanese consumers actually they don't have very specified regulation, but Japanese they have their own culture, and the seafood products. If we want to export our product to the Japan, we have to focus on Japanese culture, Japanese consumer think like a packet of scream. We have to the scream is arranged this way, but is there any scream? Is there any scream in your pocket like this way, like opposite way? They will reject all of your product. And all you want to consider about Europe country, the European consumers they focus on about the environmental, about the health, about the labor welfare, about what is the products from farm to fork, from the distribution of product from farm to fork. So we have to think, if we want to respond to the European consumer, we have to think about their regulation. There are the situation that I'm not sure in Indonesia, but in Vietnam now, the most enterprise, seafood enterprise, they try to turn to the like Asian market. Before that, we try to access to Japan. We try to access to the US market. We try to access to EU markets. But now it's very difficult. And the exporters, they tell me that it's very costly to export to Japan because the probability to be rejected is very high. So if we are rejected by Japanese consumer, the enterprise, they have to pay for the logistic cost. They have to pay for the storage cost at the custom gate. So it's very costly, and they try to turn to another market in the world. So that's why each countries will have the different regulation, and it's when during your supply chain management, it depends on your customer, your target customer, and your target consumer, and you have to respond their requirements. And the two last question maybe from Dr. Subapong, right? You mentioned information sharing is the component in the supply chains. I'm curious that is the price of this already added into the final product price already? Yes, actually, very thanks for Dr. Subapong about this question. Yeah, it is the most difficult problem in our fishery system, actually. Yes. Today we will talk about traceability, and you can see that the producers who implement traceability, it means that they have to face to the risk of their implementation, not only implementation, maintenance, but they have to face the risk that they will be discovered by the consumers. If we don't have we don't implement traceability system, the consumer may not find us. But when we implement traceability, we have to face the risk that consumer, they will find us, they will identify us if they want. So that's why we have to trade off between the benefits and the costs. And those costs should be added to the price, actually. But because, again, we are very small scale, if we are side of fishermen or farmers, so they cannot negotiate their price. They don't have any power negotiation in the market. So they have to accept with their situation, and they very scared to implement or very scared to apply the new technology because it will increase their cost. The last question is, in my opinion, if the farmer can connect directly to consumer, that's the best way. Yes, of course. In Japan, they can do that very well. And I do understand the reason why our farmers still don't want to do this. Do you think this is because of they don't have any chance to understand the importance of their information giving directly to consumer? Right. I totally agree. But as I mentioned in the first question, because they don't recognize what is the benefits, exactly the cost they have to spend to integrate or to cooperate. So they don't understand. They don't want to understand exactly like this. They don't want, because they can sell their product very easy. Like in Vietnam, if you have the opportunity to come here, you can see the farmers, they can sell their product to the collectors very easy. Collectors come to their farms and collect their product and pay the money. They don't have to spend the transaction cost anymore. So it's very convenient to sell their products So why they don't have to think about traceability? And the second thing is, as I mentioned about the regulation and liability sharing during the agents of the supply chain. Actually, in Vietnam now, every cost when the product are rejected by the importers, on cost will be paid by the exporters. And the farmers, they don't have to pay anything. The compensate cost, they don't care about the compensate cost. Enterprise exporters will care about this. So, and because the in the opposite side, when the exporters, they want to have the product to export, they have to need the materials. So they have to depend to their input suppliers. And who's their input suppliers? Their input suppliers is farmers. Their input supplier is collectors. So those agents, they don't care about the regulation of the import market. And that's why the exporter or processors, they cannot do anything, and they just pay for the compensation cost anymore. And just like this, like a circle in fisheries in Asian, not only in Vietnam, I think, but also in Asian countries. Okay, that's all my answers. Do you have any discussion more before we start to the topic today?
I think you can do your topic now because I think most of this question also will be answered in your topic. So maybe after topics we will have a discussion.
Okay. Okay. Hello? Ladies on.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's me start the lecture today. Today we will talk about traceability in seafood supply chain. And my lecture actually will have two parts, but the second part maybe is the evidence from my research. So let's talk about the first part first, as the theory of traceability. And first, I would like to talk about the role of traceability in seafood supply chain management. So please start. Again, I will remind you about the main flows of supply chain. Okay, and as you see, the supply chain, please remind that we have three flows: product flows, information flows, and financial flows. And supply chain management is the network of connected and interdependent organization activity. We have to work together to share, to manage the quality of product, to manage the flows of information and the flows of financing. So, and the second problem is the globalization and the spread of unsafety foods. And you see that any mistake at one point may be spread very quick. Okay, and consumers all over the world, they start to consider about where the food they are consuming comes from. Therefore, traceability becomes the most important requirements in the food, not only seafood, but all other food industry in over the world, in our world. So, what is traceability? Actually, as you can see in the slide, traceability is the process to share information and increase the trust of seafood quality. Seafood quality. And the most important of traceability is you have to think about how to share one step backward and one step forward along the supply chain. And I have to confirm that traceability actually by itself is not a food safety standards like MSC or ASC. No, it's only a tools to manage the information. And when you apply traceability, it doesn't mean that the food products were safety. No. However, when you implement traceability, with the main principle is to share the information among whom? Among agents in the supply chain. And under the rule, one step backward and one step forward. It then can help us to identify from whom and to whom the food products are distributed or provided. And therefore, it's useful in increasing the trust of the seafood quality, increasing the confidence of seafood quality. It's a tool. Please consider that. And you can see my simulation about traceability system. It's recording and keeping and sharing information along the agent of supply chain. You can see that like the information will be recorded in producers and then sharing to the wholesaler and then sharing to the processor, something like this. And information will be recorded and add more at each agent of the supply chain. And when consumers want to know about the information of the food, they can get. And the producers or retailers or processors, they can provide the information to their customer when they are required. This is traceability. They don't have to think about the QR code. They don't have to think about barcode. No. At the beginning, they first think about how we can share the information together, how we call for the interaction, and how we call the willingness to share the information from among agents of the supply chain. And there are two kinds of traceability system in the world. And now we implement actually two kinds of traceability are implemented by so many supply chain and so many products, so many industry all over the world. And after I share this slide, we can answer for one of question for the last week. Okay, the first kind of traceability system is business to business, B2B traceability system. And what is this B2B traceability system? Let's see, this is the supply chain. And the product flows will be the downstream flow, right? From producers to consumers. And the information flows will be shared together. And consumers can get information if they want via traceability system. And what is business to business? Business to business traceability is the system which implemented by the producer side. It means that producer, they will share their information to wholesaler. Wholesaler will be shared to the processor and so on. And the main purpose of business to business system are to focus on the cost, focus on the profit of the operation and of their business. And that's why the information will be shared within the producer side, not to consumer. And those information, including in business to business, maybe include the secret information of the producers, because those information will not provide to consumer, but they share information in business to business system is to manage their cost, manage their input quality, and increase their efficiency. That's why maybe it's include the secret information. But what is CFT, Consumer Facing Traceability System? Consumer Facing Traceability System is the system to protect the right of consumers, protect consumers' confidence about the food quality. So it means that if you focus to establish, to implement CFT system, you have to think about what quality, what requirements of your consumers they are requiring. Okay, so if we are the consumers, what kind of information we need? Let's think about quality product is the most important, right? So if we are consumers, they will consider about this. And if you are the producers and you want to implement CFT system, you have to think about the requirement, the demand of your consumers. And again, the aim and scope of B2B system is to increase in-power supply chain efficiency. But for CFT, the aim of CFT system is to governance. For to avoid the IUU, to avoid the mislabeling problems, to avoid the false information problems. And the second aim is to protect consumers' rights. Okay. And as you can see, the traceability now is required by high standards market like Japan, like Europe, like USA, like Canada. And the other countries, they only focus, actually consumer in the world, they are focused and they are considering about the safety and quality problem. But traceability is not only required in high standard markets. And that's why I can confirm that there are very different requirements between countries. And in the importing country, traceability now is issued in food safety laws and in quality assurance certificates as well. But the question is why we want to export our product to the high standard markets. Why? It's very difficult to respond. Why don't we turn to another market? We try to access to high standard markets. I will answer you in this Next slide. Remind that us, we are the main seafood suppliers in global market. But traceability is very new definition in our countries. That's why we want to support, we want to provide our products to the north-south, not global, the global north. We have to respond their requirements. And you can see like this, from the exporter side, if we want to export our product to high standard market and other markets, that is mean that we want to export to every country in the world. We have to, our product have to respond the food safety laws. We have to respond the quality assurance certificates. It means that we have to implement both traceability and quality assurance certificate. Otherwise, we have to turn to only other markets. We cannot access to high standard markets. Okay, and let's see very simple figure. This is the demand curve. Demand for seafood product, like this curve. Okay, the B curve, and S is described for supply curve of seafood product in on the world. Okay, very economic, but very simple. Here's the price. P present for exported price, and Q present for exported quantity. And if we are the suppliers who satisfy the requirement of high standard market, we can get the higher price, because not all suppliers, they can accept to the high standard market. That's why we can get a higher price if we can apply traceability. That's why we try to accept. But gain benefit. But it means that we have to invest more costs. We have to spend more costs. And the most important is the trade-off between benefit and cost. Benefit have to larger than cost to implement traceability. If the farmers or if the agent in the supply chain, they can recognize that, they will apply, they will implement. I'm sure. Yeah. And as I mentioned, but you have to attention. Because consumer, when we apply traceability, consumer can identify you. In the recall case, the producer can identify you. I have experience in the research from the US market side. You know about the Marco disease, and you know what? After the Marco disease, the government, the US government and retailers in the US market, they try to encourage, they make effort to implement traceability, and the purpose is of those system is aimed to answer to consumer within 2 hours. If we have any problem, any unsafety food problem occurs. But at that time, the farmers, the US farmers, they don't want to join to those systems because they don't want to publish their information. And if they don't apply traceability, they can avoid the identification. But if they apply traceability system, it means that they have to accept that everyone can find them, and they have to pay for the liability cost if they are discovered. If there are any mistake at their farm, they have to have the responsibility for this. So they don't want. The US farmer, They try to deny to join to the traceability system. Yes. And when consumers recognize you, they will decrease the demand. And we have to decrease the quantity supply, and we have to decrease the price. This is the risk. But actually, in most cases, when we apply traceability, it means that we have to improve by ourselves to avoid this situation. Yeah, and because the trader, you can get higher price in the high standard market, but you have to increase costs. That's why if the producers or farmers or fishermen, they don't recognize the benefit, they will turn to other markets. They will accept to export. They will accept to sell their product to the low standard market. And because the principles of traceability will depend on the aim of and scope of the producers, the users. Like producers, or like you are the producers, or you are the manufacturers, you will focus on your operating, on your management in your company, in your farm, in your fishing activities. So you will focus how to reduce the cost, how to maximize profits, how to improve the reputation, how to maintain the business, and how to maintain your customer. But from the government or civil actors, we will focus on the human rights. We will focus on quality and safety. We want to focus on trust and confidence. So that's why we have to try to, based on traceability system, to establish regulation. And from the consumer side, like I mentioned, they will focus on quality product. Okay, they will focus on the price, and they will consider about the confidence of the information they can accept. So that's why they need, and the scope of the traceability system in this case is to exchange the information. That is the main principle of traceability, the first part. Let me turn to the second part. I will go fast, and we can discuss more. I will share to you about my evidence, my experience, my research from Vietnamese case for screen product. So, like you know, Vietnam, Indonesia here. Okay, we are the main supplier for the screen product in global market. And in Vietnam, you can see here is Mekong Delta, Vietnamese Mekong Delta with two species, Vaname here, Vaname, the above one, and Vaname and Monodon. Yeah, and 80% was produced at Vietnamese Mekong Delta, but more than 60% of us are to export for screen product. And it means that the main purpose of production is to export. And as you can see in this figure, here's our market, the main market. You can see his quantity, his value. It means that if we can export to the US, we can export to the Japan, we can get the higher price because his quantity, his value, export value. But because our supply chain is very complicated, because of the join and the participant of the middleman, like collector, like broker, like trader, and we cannot sell the product directly from farmers to processors. That's why that's why you know what, from global side, the processor, they have to focus, they have to consider about their requirements, their customer requirements. And processor actually, in theory, if they can share those requirements from global side to the local side, everything will be easy. But because they cannot. Why? Let's see. As you see, we can if we can apply food safety and traceability, we can export to the high standard market. But because nowadays we couldn't apply traceability, so we couldn't export. It's very difficult to export to the high standard market. So that's why we have to turn to the other markets. And the situation now in local side, you can see collectors, broker, traders, they don't apply traceability because their activity is very small scale. And the farmers, they don't have safety regulation, they don't apply traceability as well. That's why from the local side, our traceability is skipped. And here's the distribution flows upstream product along supply chain. From farmers, there are two kinds of farmers. First, it is extensive. This is very small scale farmers, and larger scale farmers. From extensive farmers, they will sell their product to collectors. Here the picture, you can see collectors come to their farms and collect the stream. Very small, and they come daily. And then collector will sell their product to the broker, and broker will sell to trader to processor, and then processor will export. Will be maybe processor also exporter. And from extensive farm, they will sell to the broker, and then they will sell to trader, and so on. And we have another kind of farmers who are applying quality assurance certification. And for those farmers, they will sell their product directly to processor. But the problem is the cost to apply quality assurance now is very high comparing to the income of farmers. So that's why it's very difficult to apply this one. And you can see, yeah, again, okay, this is my simulation, and this is the information flows. From the consumer in global side, they can trace the information until the processor, and now from the processor, we can trace unto the brokers. We can trace unto the collectors, and we can trace back until the farmers who are applying quality assurance. But from between collectors, between brokers and individual farmers, we cannot trace the information. And processor will be placed the role as the intermediates of the global requirements, but they cannot push the requirement to broker or collectors or farmers because they have to depend to the material supply, input material from those agents. Only quality assurance application farmers, they can push the requirement, but the most important is now is the cost to apply quality assurance like ASC or MSC for fishermen is very high for the income of farmers. So that's why you can see traceability almost very limited at the middleman. and processor cannot know about the farms. For the quality assurance farmers, they have to consider about the benefit and the cost, because the cost is very high, and the differentiate in the price now is not clear. About the perception about traceability, you can see from input suppliers to farmers, they have high perception about traceability, but they low attention. And as I mentioned, farmers, they low perception and also low attention about traceability. Collector and traders, they have high perception but low attention. Processor and exporter, they have high perception, they have high attention, but they cannot push any requirement to the other agent in local side. And now, from the regulation, we don't have any regulation to manage collectors' activity, collectors' operation by law. No, we don't have any laws from in our countries. And another difficulty is to control the corporation. We cannot bypass, but it's very difficult to control the corporation and monitor their operation. And my conclusion for this topic is traceability is now in the mandatory requirements for seafood products in high standard market. And if we want to export our product, we have to think about their requirements. And if we can apply the international quality assurance certificates, we can it can support for traceability system. But the most problem now is the cost to apply quality assurance certificates is very high comparing to the income of the farmers or fishermen. And processors have to be the key actors to transfer the information from global side to local side. And because of bypass, the middleman is impossible. So we have to control their interaction and collaboration in the supply chain. Okay, that's all of my lecture today. I will send you the material, this material, and maybe the main part is the first part about the theory of traceability. And the second part is my experience with my research. So you can refer if you want. Thank you very much. And if you have any question or discussion, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Dong, about the presentation. I think we now one step ahead know about the what happened the traceability system in our countries. I said countries here because not only Vietnam, I think, Dong Sang,
Yeah.
that have the similar problems also in Indonesia, I think. So I invite maybe, is there any question from the participants here related to the traceability? You can ask directly, or if you don't want to ask directly, so you can put your question or comments in the chat box. Okay, I invite. Is there any question? Maybe one or two questions. It's okay, Dong Sang.
More is okay.
Yeah, if more, so I will email the question to you.
Okay.
Silakan. Okay. Rafli. Ya, Muhammad Rafli Raihan. Yeah. You can ask directly.
Yeah. Good morning, Miss Bong Dong. After the lecture you give, I will ask some question. We will take the responsibility of cost if we are trying to increase the supply chain system. The question is, thank you, Ms. Fundo.
Sorry, can you repeat it again?
Okay, I will repeat the question. Who will take the responsibility of cost if we are trying to increase the supply chain system?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Who is responsibility in traceability implemented? Traceability in supply chain, right? Is your question is correct? Is your question?
Yes.
Okay. Who is responsibility? Actually, each agent in supply chain will have. Actually, we have to have the responsibility to implement traceability, because like I share in the lecture, traceability is a tool, not only to improve our quality product, but because each agent of supply chain, when they implement traceability, it means that we have to share the information together. And when you share the information together, we have to improve by ourselves. Like they don't want to show our mistake to everyone. We have to improve by ourselves. That's why when we apply traceability, our product will be improved day by day, year by year, because all information will be shared and consumer will identify us. And if they want to avoid those mistakes, those accidents, we have to improve by ourselves. That's why the responsibility to establish traceability it belongs not only to farmers, not only to fishermen, but all agents in the supply chain.
Yeah, I'm interested about the question from Rafi. So how about the cost itself? Who will be the responsible of the cost? For example, the cost will be increased. Is that the responsible of the exporter or farmer or the other agent?
Yeah, understood. Great question, ladies. Actually, this is the most important. But because first of all, we should know exactly about traceability, because we always think about very high technology like QR code, like barcode, or something like this. No, traceability just call for the keeping and recording information and share together. Like me, actually, for Vietnamese side, I suggest that from the farmers who are very small scale and they lacking up the resources, they lacking up the training and lacking up the education, so they cannot use very high technology, but they can record and keep the information by paper base, and then we can share those information to the processors who have own technology to input the information and share the information. Processor, they have own technology, but because they cannot ask the farmers, they cannot ask the collectors share the information to them, so they cannot utilize the information. But if we can call for the integration, we can implement traceability. It's very simple. That's why I conclude that processors should be the key actors, because they have enough resources, they have enough financing resources to do everything. But farmers or fishermen, they just call for their interaction and collaboration to share the information by paper base is enough, I think. for our situation.
Yeah, okay. So the second question, is it okay, Dong-sang? So the second question is from Ali Fudin Wahyu Pratama. So he said that, do you have any experience of fish product from fishing? So and then what is the most important thing that we should learn about if we want to have the traceability, good traceability system
For
in
fishing product.
fishing product?
Okay.
Because you said about the shrimp product, right? From aquaculture, right?
Actually, now I'm working for one project in the middle of Vietnam, and this is though this area is almost is fishing areas, not aquaculture, and the most fishing also in Vietnam now. The most important is fishermen, and actually the main the same situation as aquaculture in Vietnam. Not very different because you know what, the fishermen, Vietnamese fishermen, they are also celebrate very small scale, and they have to ask collector. Actually, between fishermen and collectors, they have familiar network, and collectors give the money to the fishermen, and then fishermen just after fishing they just sell their product to the collectors, and collectors distribute the product to processors, to brokers, to the traders, and it's also depend on distribution channels. But the most important now is everyone said that okay, I just the fishermen, they said they tell me that okay, because collectors give me the money first, and then I will sell our product to them. And collector said okay, no, it's not important about the quality, because quality is the same. When fisher, after fishing, fisher sell us the product, and we will provide directly and immediately. But sell to whom? Sell to the whom willing to buy a higher price. It's the most important. I think it's in not only in Vietnam, it's the same in Indonesia.
Okay, the next question are from my colleague Bu Chandra. So she's from fishery socio-economic. So please, Bu Chandra.
Please.
Yes, thank you, Miss Lady. Good morning, Miss Bu. I'm Chandra, and your material is very good, and yes, you are correct, because in Indonesia is also have similar problem. But I see in your material only talk about the problem, and maybe based on your research you can give us suggestion how to make this traceability can be done to all of the actor, especially for the small scale business, because we also have the same problem. I think if you have a suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me turn back. Okay, here. Yes, actually, because why I also show you the problems. Actually, in Vietnam, we have enough regulation. Like Vietnamese policy makers try to issue a lot of regulation about traceability. So if we want to review the policy, we have enough. We have a lot. But when we apply those regulations in the current situation, the real situation, we cannot apply, because the willingness to share willingness to cooperate of its agent in supply chain is not very high, especially as I mentioned, farmers, collector, and broker. First problem is because they are small scale, so they want to sell their product as convenient much as possible, as convenient as possible. So that's why they prefer to sell their product to collectors. But now in Vietnam, from the regulation perspective, from the policy makers perspective, we have the regulation to manage farmers official. We have, because the farmers or fishermen, they will monitor by the Department of Fisheries. And for quality assurance, we have Department of Quality Assurance in Forestry, Agriculture, and Fisheries. We have, but for collectors, now we don't have any regulation. So in my research, actually, I have published one paper about this, and I suggest that if we can call for collectors to participate to the cooperative. It means that we will push the collector try to operate as a cooperative. So now we don't have individual collectors, but we have the cooperative of collectors. And I think this situation is suitable for the fish trade application in Indonesia, in Lukaku Island, I think. So if we, it's my suggestion. Actually, I learned the experience from your country when I do this research, how to push the collectors to the cooperative, and if we can manage them, and we can ask them work as the members of cooperatives. And now we have the laws of cooperative, so the cooperative will work under the laws, so we can manage the collectors, and that's all. Farmers, they try, we have the monitor from the Department of Fisheries, and now we can manage the collectors, and we try to connect them under the law, and we try to specify their liability and responsibility to implement traceability. I think it's the good way, the best way for our situation now. This is my suggestion.
How is Bu Chandra? Is it okay?
Oh, is it okay? Is it okay?
I think it could be done if they can make a cooperation. Yeah, it's also the problem in our country for the institution. Institution, and now I think Indonesia also try to make cooperate them, but yeah, it's difficult. But it's
I agree. The most important is how to call for their participant.
Yes, miss. Yes. Yes. It's very good explanation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the last question maybe. Dosang, so sorry.
Okay.
So there's a question from Perdana Keanu Trapsila. So he asked about what will happen if we use BTB system. Can we as consumer have the guarantee of food quality and safety?
Understood. Yeah. Actually, let me turn back. It will be. Okay. Here is B2B and the aim and scope of B2B system. As I mentioned you, the main aims and scope of B2B system is to increase the inbound supply chain efficiency. Sure, because actually you have to, first of all, I think you should think about the what kind of and what the processors or producers what are they thinking about. What are they thinking about? They thinking about their activities, their operation, and their business. So that's why I always said that they will consider how to maintain, how to reduce the cost, and how to minimize the profit. That's why they try to establish B2B system for what? To share the information to towards to estimate, towards to focus their demand in the input, in the materials. And of course, when we share the information, it should be include the quality and the quality of product and the safety as well. And that's why if we want to share those information to consumer, it's possible. It's possible. But for business to business system, it's used for your operation, and you can choose what kind of information to share to consumer, because it maybe include the secret information in your companies or in your operation, in your business. It's possible. If you have business to business system, you can share the quality and safety information of the products to consumer. It's easy. It's very easy.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Dong, about the explanation. I just count that we have 4 questions, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a lot, I think. And we also curious about the next meeting will be about. Can you give us directly, for example, as a
okay. Next week we will talk about the integration of quality assurance application and traceability.
Okay. That's also interesting topics, I think. And also, Bu Chandra, you can also join. I will invite you.
Please.
Okay, I hope I join.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Dong, so this is the end of our lectures today. So thank you for this week lectures. And we will have another lecture for the next week. So that's
next Monday.
2 more.
Two more, yes.
2 more.
Okay. The last topic is about how to design the experiment in fishery economics.
Okay.
And especially in supply chain, because it's very specialist. Actually, supply chain, we have to follow the rule, 1 step backward and 1 step forward. That's why sometimes we cannot accept the large scale of sampling. So we have to use some especially and specialist methods to design the experiment.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's all, everybody. So don't forget to fill in the attendee list, and also for the application for Presency. So please fill in both in the Zoom meeting and also the Gapura system. Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Dong, and then also Bu Chandra and all participants. We will have another meeting for next week. So thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you next week.